Wait. Hello.
Here we go. Everybody.
Yeah,
Good evening.
yeah. Good
How you
evening.
doing, man?
I am doing well. Let's first
Doing
welcome
well?
everyone. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
welcome everyone to We Global this evening.
Listen. Where's the other guy?
I wonder what happened to him.
What
I think
you
because
thinking?
of his son. His son probably got him.
You reckon he got some people around and they're having a nice time and they don't know how to get away?
Exactly. Putting on a little bit of a bit of a barbecue.
Son is out, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Anyway, listen, Andre's having a few issues with his machine, and he'll join us shortly. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. How are we doing? Welcome to We Global. If this is your first time here, welcome. It's always a pleasure to welcome everybody onto the We Global platform. And do us a favor right now and hit share so we can send this conversation along across to everybody across the region, across the internet, as we get going this evening. How you doing, Bernadette? Good to see you there as well. How you doing? So what's been up with you then, Phil? How you doing, man? How you keeping?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Enjoying the shift in weather in the UK. It's hot.
Oh, God.
It's Caribbean hot. Almost.
Well, you know? I saw something today saying it is the hottest day of the year. 31.6, I think.
That sounds like a down south thing. Here, I think we got as much as 26 or so. But it's been hot, but lovely. Good to
lovely.
Spend some time outside, just topping up on some sunshine. Well, it's been a long winter.
Yeah, well, true. That is very true. That is very true. Hi, Katie. How you doing? Good to see you. Good evening. Yeah, well, I had to put on a shirt for this show, man, because
you just walk around with your shirt off.
Listen, the place sweltering. I mean, I don't normally for the show, I would have the door closed and the windows closed and everything just to make sure we don't get too much noise coming through. But today, can't afford that, man. It's just too hot.
Leave it open. Yeah.
And you know how weather is a real British thing for people to talk about, right? Every time you meet somebody, the first thing they ask you is about the weather. Yeah. So what else you been up to this week, man?
What else has been going on this week? Well, besides work, there's been some other stuff, following last week's loss in football.
Let's rewind there again for our audience. We didn't have a show last Sunday because we were preparing for a celebration. We really thought that England would have
brought it home.
I don't want to use that phrase.
I haven't heard that phrase.
It's a very controversial one. People say, well, it's never been home, and all that. But we didn't have a show last Sunday. We were together with our families watching the football. The kids were all very excited, and it was heartbreak at the end. But more importantly, what has followed over the course of the week has really caused us a lot of concern. And perhaps not surprisingly, you wanted to share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise at all. I just remember I was exchanging messages with you guys, but also remember we had Matt on a few weeks ago and we have this group, Music, Football, Fatherhood. So they were exchanging messages right throughout. And when Rashford missed his goal, and then Sancho missed his goal, and then Saka missed his goal, one of the guys just said, what's coming tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah,
right?
Sadly.
Sadly, everyone knew that the next day there was going to be loads of abuse online, racial abuse online against those three players.
Yeah.
And not just against those three players. In fact, quite a few Black people living in Manchester, once that happened, decided not to leave their homes that night. And the next day, out of fear of being attacked. And there were reports of people being attacked as well.
It is absolutely amazing. And I was following some of the story online and watching a lot of what people were saying. One of the things that really grabbed my attention was children deciding not to go into school last Monday, because they also started to know exactly what was going to play out on public transport in particular.
Indeed.
You know, buses not stopping, people not wanting them to get into taxis. I mean, it was shockingly pathetic, honestly.
It was dreadful. And for us, this is really close to home, because if we think of Sancho's family comes from Trinidad.
Yep.
Rashford's family comes from St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yep.
And I think Jamaica as well. Saka's is East African.
Absolutely.
As well, you know. So it really is really close to home, you know.
Well, and for you, you know, I know obviously your son is a Man City supporter, but Marcus Rashford plays for Manchester United. And this mural became, and for those of you who don't live here in the UK, but naturally you would have heard this in the news, I hope. This mural became a focal point over the course of this week. Yeah,
this was it was amazing to just run towards this mural. It's not very far away from where I live. Mm-hmm. It's about 2.3 miles away. But what happened with this mural is the next day, the abuse that was online spilled into the real world.
Yeah.
And this is a mural in the neighborhood where Marcus Rashford would have grown up, a place called Whittington. And an artist would have drawn it to honor him. And the very next day, when people woke up, it was defaced with graffiti, with racist graffiti on there, because of him missing a penalty in a football match.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think of that, you know, when stuff is done online, it feels as though, okay, these are people sat behind a keyboard. It feels abusive and intimidating. But when it starts to creep into your real world and into your neighborhood, you think, these are people who know me. These are people who have access to my property, who have access to me as well in my vicinity. It starts to really become intimidating. Physically intimidating. You feel physically unsafe in that space.
Yeah, and I feel as though the whole conversation over the course of the week there was nothing new to me, to be honest. I felt as though I've heard a lot of these statements before, you know, and particularly there's one statement in particular that has really started to rattle me, and it is this whole statement that social media platforms need to do more. Now, I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that statement in itself isn't wrong or bad. I do feel that there's a certain delegation of responsibility that those in authorities who can do more find it easy to say and pass on the responsibility to social media platforms. It's really disgraceful, to be honest.
It is such a tricky one, because we have to be very careful about that. I heard people saying, well, maybe we need to link people's IDs on social media to their national identification. Who does this sound like? Where is this happening right now? This happening in China.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe, and other people are saying maybe we need to moderate things and have a lot more sort of content filtering and censorship and so on. What we are actually calling for the social media platforms is for the very social media platforms that we cry down that exist behind China's national firewall, right? And we have to be very, very careful about, do we actually want this sort of digital control, or do we want to be a bit more honest about this bizarre relationship between the virtual world and the physical world, and how those two interplay with each other?
Well, for me, I've always had an issue with anonymity on the internet, because it doesn't work for me, and I've always had that as a bit of an issue. But that's just my own personal approach to the internet. I think if I'm on there as me, you know. But I'm not on there to do the world any wrong, so I suppose I might not be the right person to consider your approach to the internet. But the whole issue around identity and anonymity is certainly one that has to be resolved as we move forward. Because for me, as long as that stay the way it does, we are going to constantly be going around this cycle of constantly returning to these conversations every couple of months, because people can get behind the keyboard, they can say what they like, they can do what they like, and there's no comeback on them.
Yeah,
not enough comeback on them, I should say.
I do think with the platforms, there are multiple things that we could be doing. You know, so I think we are a very event oriented society and industry. Now, what I mean by event oriented is things happen, there's a lot of noise around them, and then that noise disappears. We're reacting to the events, but not really looking at the systems in detail to see what is allowing these events, these spikes in sentiment, in toxicity to rise up constantly. And just by removing stuff, we're actually not giving ourselves the opportunity to learn.
Oh,
right. And there could be, there he is. There could be opportunities to say, well, let's not just delete these messages, but maybe let's mark them in a different color so that people can see this is what was said. You know, it might, you know, and the platform does not, because what the platforms are doing, they're protecting themselves. Well, they're linking that censorship to their own credibility as opposed to protecting people.
Like you're rubbing your hands, man. So you know, you're itching to say something other than sorry to be late.
Me, I was sorry to be
man.
My computer decided just as we were gonna go that it was gonna do an update, and it would just, you know, it wouldn't let me stop it. I didn't catch it, and it wouldn't let me stop it.
Speaking of technology,
I just had to wait.
I would not even want to be in that room when that was happening with you.
I was Cam.
Really?
I can't say it myself, but hey.
Well, I think our audience know I'm the Camus of the lot. I am always pretty Cam.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. You are indeed.
I'm the Camus of the lot, you know. Hey, brother,
man.
I decided to do a little thing there, so I had to just like run through. But I was listening. I was there listening, you know. I hear, but I got my tissue here ready. Because yes, people. I down south in London, as Philip said, and it's sweltering down here.
Yeah, man. So I mean, how was your week, man? How things?
Me, I good, man. Today
we barbecue this week too.
No. Well, actually,
you have about 5 barbecues.
I know.
No, so Friday I decided I took some time out. My daughters had the last day and they had some friends over. So I decided to do, you know, be daddy and just serve my girls and stuff. So I had the barbecue out there. Friends were having a good time. Had the hamburgers on. Loads of vegans in that group.
Wow. You fitting well.
This is a new.
Loads of vegans in that group. So I had the barbecue
a lot of
out.
mushrooms.
And mushrooms, a little hummus, celery sticks, all that kind of stuff, you know. So I just allowed them to have a little chill out while I do that on Friday. So that was me. And then today was stuck in about nearly 3 hours worth of traffic on the M25.
Wow.
So going nowhere,
literally
the kind of traffic where people get out the car and just start walking around. I think I saw one person walking the dog. While traffic, that's the kind of traffic that we were stuck in today. Where nothing was moving, turn off the engine, get out the car and have a stretch.
I don't think the motorways have seen that. Mark will tell me different, but I don't think motorways have seen that sort of traffic for a long time.
No, we haven't actually. But traffic has continued to grow over the last couple of months, you know. I was looking at some trends on Friday, funny enough, and of course, all the modes are down. And particularly here in the West Midlands, our trains are still 70% down. People are still not traveling by train. But if you look at the trends, the motorway has fallen a lot over COVID, but still remain the mode that a lot of people choose to use over the course of the pandemic.
But I see Dennis there saying 130 degrees in Death Valley. Philip as the Einstein in the group. What's that in Celsius there, man?
I don't know. I don't bother with that calculations no more.
That's 34, 35? I don't even know what's that in. Dennis, tell us what is that in Celsius. You know, Caribbean people, these Celsius people. I don't know. I'll look at your phone there.
So you get over last Sunday, man? Because I know you was keeping enough noise when the game was on.
Man, we had enough noise in the house, man. Yeah, we get over last Sunday. Look. I was listening to y'all talking about what was going to happen and that kind of thing. Yeah. What was John Barnes that said the other day? While he was doing great, he was British, but as soon as he was doing badly, he was Jamaican.
Yeah.
It was, it was John Barnes said that the other day, and he's born 54 degrees, Dennis. Thank you. Wow, 54.
Right.
Yeah, so obviously John Barnes, born in Jamaica, but came here at a very young age, a Liverpool legend. And he was saying as well, every time he's playing, when he was doing great, he was English. The moment something didn't go too well, the strapline said Jamaican born.
Jamaican born. Yeah.
And that's the society that we in here in the UK.
Yeah, man. And it's such a shame that, 30 years on, we don't feel as though we've gone anywhere, particularly in the football context, that is, because obviously racism has been around for centuries, but in the football context, it doesn't feel as though we've gone anywhere, man.
Well, it's a societal thing too, right? Because don't forget, just before that, the Home Secretary here was saying that the guys kneeling was
gesture politics.
It was gesture politics.
Gesture politics.
Yeah. So what you do when you and this is where people don't understand that when they're in certain positions that their voice, intentionally or
carries
not,
a lot of weight.
It carries a lot of weight, especially in certain undesirable sectors of the community.
Absolutely.
So when you as the Home Secretary say, hey, these guys should stop kneeling, this is gesture politics, or the Prime Minister saying, people who boo them are perfectly within their rights to boo, you sent a signal to say yes, whether you wanted to or not. Yes, good. So we can continue booing. And then you knew what another further section of that, smaller section, are the ones who were going to do exactly what happened after Saka missed the penalty. And then the next day come out, same Priti Patel, who is the Home Secretary, talking about she was disgusted by this. I was like, what?
Oh, disgusted what?
You know what was
disgusted what?
I think the traditional media also has a role to play here, because I remember Priti Patel said that.
I like that. We can discuss that in a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ooh. Yeah, we could come back to that. When Priti Patel made that statement on Twitter, Tyrone Mings, his name, sort of said, you can't come out and support it and then condemn it.
Exactly.
After you don't get to do that. And you know what the media sort of said that was? Tyrone Mings attacks Priti Patel.
But that's the media here.
He did not attack her. He made a really reasonable statement, but it wasn't an attack. There was no vile, toxic language in it. And then I saw other comments emerging as well, like, "Oh, what are we gonna do about that man mansplaining to a female and all sorts of bizarre terminology, as opposed to having a conversation that was quite reasonable." On one hand, she said it's fine, and now suddenly she wants to condemn the outcomes.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a shame. Initially, some of it is unfortunate because then it took over the news cycle, right? Yeah. It should have been something very different, considering how far England got. Instead of even Raheem Sterling, who was obviously a victim of a lot of this stuff in the past, but the media seemed to let him alone during this tournament
because he was doing so well, huh?
And he was doing so well. They didn't have a choice, right? And it's unfortunate that takes over the media cycle. It's really, really, really unfortunate because now no one is talking about how great Raheem did. No one is talking about how good the team did to get to a final. The final of a tournament, and getting beat to Italy is no shame. No. Let me tell you, those guys are the masters of the dark arts of football. They know how to string out a game. They know how to manage a game and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when you came in, you did like this, right? My producer here doing so you want me to do? Some kid down there on the road running up and down with something, keeping a whole bottle of
I don't want to trust him, man.
Move him along, right? Move him along, man.
We busy. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff. But Bernadette asked about playing for your country of your birth, though. That's an interesting one, And this is anyway. Go ahead. This is interesting. What do you think about that?
It is interesting. I think there's a lot of sentiment to be apportioned to that. But when you look at where, in fact, this is a big issue that came up in Barbados recently, because as we know, Mr. Latipi is coaching the team in Barbados. They got trounced by Bermuda 8-1. And one of the things that came up was all of these foreign players who came back have made no difference, right? But one of the interesting points was they chose to come back to play, right? And that doesn't always happen. I think in order for that to become attractive and something that is really a huge opportunity that players will take advantage from, the home nations have to do a lot better, and they have to put a lot more infrastructure in place, and they have to put a lot more money in place to get sport to the level that is attractive for these guys to say, of course I'm going to play for Trinidad, of course I'm going to play for Jamaica, of course I'm going to play for Barbados.
But this is just come back to the same thing we always talking about Caribbean unity and the things that underpin it. Because everything about Caribbean unity isn't necessarily always political union all the time. There's certain underpinnings that will help build that whole Caribbean unity type thing. And one of them is football, to have some kind of semi-professional kind of league or something going on that people will be incentivized to A, stay in the Caribbean to play, and then B, perhaps play for the, I don't know, if it's a Caribbean team, just as you got the West Indies or what have you. But no doubt, I wouldn't begrudge John Barnes. I mean, he left Jamaica when he was very young, and he was making some good money here in for Liverpool and what's not, and he decided to play for England. You know, I wouldn't begrudge that. Although one could ask the same thing about our guy who plays for the English cricket team. But anyhow, that's
Joffre.
Joffre. You know, that's another thing.
Man, I think you gotta be fair to the guys, man.
Wow, right.
You gotta be fair to the guys. If you are going to make a living from sport,
agree,
and you are at the highest level of sport, you know, they're like me and you. Don't put Phil to one side for a moment, you know, because there's three tiers here, right? It's me and you in this film when it comes to sport, right?
I mean, if he is here or which is me?
This Phil down here, right?
Really?
Right? He can come back in and defend himself, I'm sure. But the point I'm making is, if you are at that elite level, you there's a natural inclination to want to go where you can play at the highest level, and the infrastructure is in place to help you to continue to be successful. That is our problem in the Caribbean. Why?
Exactly.
And I don't know, it's so sad because our sporting heroes, a lot of them we've shown the world we have pedigree in sport, but for all these generations where we've produced sporting heroes, we haven't instilled infrastructure across the Caribbean to demonstrate that we are serious about sport.
I just wanted to add that, by the way.
Go ahead, man.
Probably the only one here who played Division 1 league in any sport in Barbados. I don't know if you guys played Division 1.
I get to at least Division 2. I would give you that.
Okay, well, Division 2 is all right, but I actually played Division 1. Anyway, yeah, go on.
You just want to get that in.
Yeah, I just added it in.
Find a picture. You gotta find a picture. Let me see that.
I will. I'll send some pictures.
Find a picture and let me see it.
You're saying you don't believe just his word.
I would say that. I just like evidence. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying I don't trust Phil. Be friends. I trust Phil, but I just want to verify so that we can go to the public with this information. You know.
Yeah. What sport was it, by the way, Phil? Just
volleyball.
Volleyball.
Of course.
But he was the setter.
Of course.
There you go.
You're trying to say there, Bar.
But look,
I just trying to say he don't understand the sport. That's what
he was a man, a good youth. No, did he just make the point I was just going to make? The point is that on certain things like sports, apart from say Jamaica, but that's a whole nother story. We don't necessarily see sports as something worthy of investment.
Do we have the capital to invest in it? That's the other thing.
The answer to that is I think if you can see a path to something, you find the capital for it. If you can see a path to either prominence, growth, financial return on investment, you will find it. You will find it. you will find the capital for in some form of fact. And a lot of things don't require a huge amount of investment. I think a lot of it is still our mindset. There is a mindset that we just don't hold athletics, the arts, that kind of stuff as a real something to do. You know, it's just that in the Caribbean.
I agree. I think there's mindset, but I also think you got to create the conditions to influence it, right? For me, I just always say on this show, I don't think when you look around the world that you will find a region with more creatives than the Caribbean. That's just my feeling. I just think that we are just very, very creative. But when you look beyond who we are and the structures that we have in place to support our creativity, they're too weak. You know, everybody can't come out of school and be an accountant. we will probably create more calypsonians and runners and people who are excellent at football and poetry and writing. We would probably create more of them. But when you look at the structures, they're just not there to have a primary school child say, actually, that is what I want to do. They're just not there.
But I agree with that wholeheartedly. But again, you don't have the structures because there's no belief. There's a mindset that says this is not worthy of investment or that change. You got to have people who come up with that understanding to want to invest in something. At the moment, I don't think that we pay enough attention to even that in our school, in our education. We don't spend enough time pointing out people who have achieved a whole amount and then get that mindset change. So I think you would get the investment or at least a change towards that investment if you get a change in mindset. And until that happens, you're gonna never see that. You're gonna never see those structures come into place. You just won't. You know, that's just the way how that is. But you know, we'll see we'll see what happens there. But anyway, let's hope that the UK, you know, we'll see what continues.
I think there's a certain bit of we have to redefine what success is as well. I think we are too stuck in a paradigm that wasn't created by our culture, to be honest, of success being about profit, speed of delivery, convenience. That's not necessarily success, right? And I think there's a certain bit of redefinition of that you're comfort. When I say the word comfortable, I don't mean without struggle, but that you identify with naturally and inherently, and that's going to take some time.
I think it's a valid point. But look, I mean, when you consider, and let's look at a good example at the moment then, right? We know the West Indies team are currently playing Australia, and hooray, the guys have won the series 4-1. We're the best team in T20 across the world right now, man. There's no two ways about it. But, you know, when you look at this team, you always feel as though, but what does the pipeline behind them look like? You know, who is coming next, and how can we sustain it? There's so much talent, but it just always feels as though it is only for a short season.
But the issue that when you think about something like this and you look at it again, it comes back to me of, despite our success in the 70s and the 80s and early 90s and what's not, it's almost seen as if, okay, that happened and it's great that it happened. And then there's always a bit of a but, as far as I'm concerned. And I still think that mindset exists still today. And that's why we haven't been able to capitalize on that success and plow the infrastructure and stuff in to make sure that success continues. Because it was on raw talent that, what in many cases, why we were as good as we were, you know, and we haven't figured out that but there's a lot of it that you can nurture, a la Australia, a la England now, who's probably one of the best test teams and best one-day teams in the world now, and what's not, and similarly with other countries across the world. India is different because India cricket is like football, and until that mindset change, we will continue to be in this issue. There's no lack of talent on the lower levels of cricket across the region. The issue is the lack of infrastructure to ensure that they reach the potential. And that is the real problem. And not join the West Indies team and then try to reach your potential, but help you reach your potential and then come into the West Indies team already at a level where you could compete with the best in the world. And I think that is the issue. And to me, a lot of that is still the mindset. A lot of that is still the mindset in how we treat sports, the arts, and that kind of stuff as well. Because you can argue the same conversation when it comes to music. You know, why haven't certain underlying infrastructure to help people protect their IP and what's not and police the system and stuff? Why hasn't that happened? And a lot of that has happened because, man, fellas just saying, Calypso, well, hello, waka. That's what we do. We haven't valued it.
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly that there's too little value, man. Too little value.
And the thing is about it is that I don't know how it would change, considering now in today's world, in 2021, you could actually see the value of it. You could point, you know, even if you in the past, you could point to your Bob Marley's and what's not. You could point to Arrow, you know, but maybe people didn't understand how Arrow became so popular around the world. People must have just thought that I was a little fluke. But today, you could point to your Rihanna's and the Nicki Minaj's and a whole bunch of different people doing some great things around the world. So you could see the value. Not saying that making it outside the region is the goal. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, but you could see where people can go to make a living from this thing. So therefore, put the infrastructure in place so that our local homegrown talent and stuff can do the same thing.
But you see,
never happens.
You see why and we've spoken about this before, right? I have one of our characteristics as Caribbean people is we like it now, okay? And I always go on the basis for that statement that we've been heavily influenced by the Americans, and the Americans give us it, wants it packaged well and look good. So that is our standard. Our standard, it gotta look good. What we don't see is the road to good, right? All the mistakes, the bumps, the failures, when it then looks so good. That's the journey that we don't really like to go on so much as Caribbean people. And let me give you an example. The point you just made there about music, because I've spoken to you about this before. Take Barbados, right? The Barbados government has no opposition, right? I'm sure there are probably some fans of the government in the chat there would probably tell you, yes, they have no opposition. But when you have no opposition, you have a great responsibility. And we just talking music, right? There is nothing stopping the Barbados government from going to Parliament tomorrow and start to legislate to make music more protected. There's nothing stopping them. It's Motley could do it tomorrow, right? There's no opposition, but why not? Because on the one hand, if we're talking about being serious about culture and arts and music and all of these areas that we thrive in, you got to put down your roots, man. You got to put down your foundations and go on the journey. That's what the Americans have done well. They've put in all the copyright controls, right? They've gone on the journey. We got to go on ours.
Exactly. But I don't know how much of it to keep saying it's just the mindset of what we value. We just don't value that stuff when it comes from our own. We just don't.
I haven't given this enough thought, but something that's striking me is that when we think of protection and value and so on, and the infrastructure that's required, we tend to think of an infrastructure similar to ways and means that exist in the UK and the US and so on. I'm wondering if there's something different that's required, something that looks a bit more like community-grown collaboration, something like that.
Yeah, there's that, but the underpinnings of protecting IP so that people can make a living and survive and what's not, that is still, even if there's still that underpinning that needs to happen.
Yeah, you still require those principles and some sort of conformance with international markets and infrastructures and so on. But I do think one of the reasons we don't value things is because we see and understand the way those markets work, but in our hearts don't beat for that way of working, right? So if we need to find something that we also feel passionate about, that we also feel as though this is really what this represents us culturally. I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I really have this sense that we constantly see these patterns of African and West Indian innovation, and then there's a certain industrialization that follows from other cultures, using and borrowing ideas from African and West Indian expressions, right?
Yes.
But we're not industrialist per se. That's not our modus operandi.
That might be. And
I think that's one of the big challenges we have.
That is the challenge. But my view is that we got to. Otherwise, we might as well start complaining when you steal pan get thief. We might as well get complaining. Start
what have you done to protect it?
When Killmonger decide that he want to use Juve and copyright it for Hiram. We might as well start complaining when you hear spooge elements, reggae elements, and calypso elements in all the North American songs. And trust me, you hear them in almost every pop song. You listen to the drum beat, calypso 100%.
I agree.
And they're taking it. So if we don't do something about it, whether we like it or not, whether it's in our nature, and I think that's what you mean, it's not necessarily in our nature to want to profit from everything, especially from our expressions.
Exactly.
Whereas around us, the world has turned expressions into profit, and there's moved on with that. But to me, we can gotta either decide that we are right to give and let everybody carry it along, or don't do anything about it. But I think that there's certain things that we need to get on board with and not just see as them people out there. To me, this is one. Too many of our stalwarts, cultural stalwarts, whether you're talking about Winsford Devine in Trinidad, or you're talking about someone like who was the Calypsonian in Barbados that died a few months ago. Anyway, I can't remember his name. His name gone from me straight away. There now, or some of the reggae artists in Trinidad, in Jamaica. Too many of them have been given so much culturally. You can go on Spotify, YouTube, all kind of stuff, and hear these men music all over the place. You hear the music being sampled all over the world. And all the time, we gotta be holding a benefit concert for these men when they get.
Well, don't even get me started on that. And here's the thing, because we have not taken enough time to understand and protect. So when our artists die, it don't necessarily mean that their music is gone,
No,
because there's so much exactly. There's so much protection in place that allows their families to live from the legacy of their work. But if we don't do the thing properly, we will forever be in this perpetual cycle of benefit concerts for this person, because we don't even have musician unions. We don't even have insurance for artists. We don't even have artists being able to earn money properly if they can't work. It's just, and we've been at this for too long. We've been at this for too long to still be at this place when it comes to culture in the arts.
That's right, Valerie's Observer. Yes, that's what I meant. And then you had what's his name in Antigua that died recently a few months back too. And when you listen to the stories and you listen to the songs, popular songs, that you will hear licking down radio stations up and down the Caribbean. Or you go to New York and these places, you hear the music all across Notting Hill Carnival. You hear the music, and not a man getting a penny for that.
No.
And you're there like,
ridiculous.
Huh? And that's because we haven't put the building plots in place to then link in. We could do it however we want to. But then if we link in to the global framework, then it allows that to come back to the guys and they make a living. And when guys pass away, their families make a living because they still own, the rights are still theirs for at least, depending on when they do it, could be another 50 to 100 years. The families could be living. And that
so I do agree. I think it is those two bits of work. I do feel as though there is a need to build a sort of industrial machine, that so to speak, that fits our cultural behavior and expectations, but then also build that bridge and that link in to the international way of doing things, as opposed to trying to replicate that. Because somehow we seem to get exhausted trying to replicate what's happening out in the international scene as business models. You know, there seems to be not the passion in place. Even if you try to collaborate with people who are not artists and are strictly about business, it never seems to be sustainable. So
interesting.
Well, again, it comes back to the whole thing that we always talk about. To me, if you put this thing with some unity and put some heads together, along with the willpower and the valuing of ourselves, you will see this story move forward. But I guess sometimes you just wonder though if we, I was thinking there the other day when we talk about, we talk about unity and Caribbean unity and stuff, and I was wondering, we hit the leaders pretty hard sometimes when we having this discussion, but you always wonder, the people of the Caribbean actually want unity, y'all think though?
I think there's always going to be a split one.
And what kind of unity? Because one of the things I was thinking
I was going to ask, what do you mean by unity?
I was like, because the kind of unity we talking about, I mean, we can't even figure out how to take off taxes off of regional airlines. We can't even agree on that. We can't even agree a bubble. We can't do that. So how the heck Barbados can get the dollar? Cause let me tell you, they ain't no more important to Belgian than a Belgian dollar.
That's true.
so how the heck you can tell you get that?
I think there's an appetite for regional unity amongst the people, but you're right. It has to be absolutely clear what that needs to look like, because I don't know. I think COVID more than anything else has shown us how inward looking we are as a region. Very, very inward looking. And funny enough, COVID might also be the trigger that forces us to embrace more of our regionalism rather than continuing to be so insular about who we are as individual nations. It might be. I don't know. I would hope it would be. I would hope it would be.
I was just thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know, maybe the politicians know what we don't know, and that is, what we talk about it, people at the heart of it really, really, really want the Caribbean unity, because Barbados ain't want to get them dollar. The OECS tired of being looked down on the other islands. They may want to get subsumed into wherever Trinidad and stuff got going on. Jamaica, well,
too big for that. We too big for that.
Well, honestly, I think we getting to a point where we gotta ask Jamaica, hey,
we don't want to be part of this or not.
Are you out? I that's the honest truth. I think we getting to that point where Jamaica is concerned. Now, almost every time I open the papers or online, I'd be like, man, these guys.
Jamaica is a classic case of we breaking for ourselves, as the agencies say. Breaking for ourselves.
I think so.
That is what it is.
Examples?
Well, there's two. There's two that I can think of. Two very recent ones, actually. One is, and I think we posted up something on this on our page last week, the whole conversation around reparations, right? Because that was a very regional conversation for some time. But suddenly, Jamaica has broken forward. And it's like, actually, listen, we're going to get what is ours. And that was a little bit painful to read, to be honest, because it just feels as though here we are again as a Caribbean. We cannot even be united around something that should actually be uniting us. That's one. Go ahead.
No, on that very one, actually, I'm glad you bring up that, because I'll be honest, when I read that, I don't even know what take over my brain reading this thing. And watching it, because I think the Indian, is it Dion or Neon? Whatever it's called. Leon. Picked up this story. And I found it really interesting. One, the Caribbean actually has a whole committee looking at this whole thing with Hillary Beckles and Mia Motley and a whole bunch of people looking at this thing. But I've never really seen it picked up by the international media. And then I asked myself, so what is it that made this Indian news outlet take up the reparations story when it was just Jamaica, but didn't take it up at all clearly when it was the Caribbean asking for it and keeping a lot of noise about it? So that's the first thing. The second thing that got me was But how foolish we look, though, to be honest with you. Because how you have a whole committee dealing with this thing as the Caribbean.
Yep.
And then Jamaica decide, well, that's not my microphone. Jamaica deciding,
done with that.
yeah, we can do this ourselves. We think we can figure this out ourselves. So I'll tell you what, England, yeah, the rest of the Caribbean doing that, but I think you should pay we this.
Yeah.
I like, how we expect to get taken seriously?
No. Yeah, and that is precisely what people like to see from the Caribbean. You know, we play into their hands a lot because that whole disunity, that whole splintering, it brings the conversation back to y'all don't know what y'all doing though. and sometimes we have ourselves to blame. And this is a classic example. And I was really saddened when I read that, because for me, that is the most relevant contemporary issue of our time. And the work that Hillary Beckles and the committee are doing is so important. But it just feels as though it just suddenly unraveled.
To me, that whole thing unraveled the whole conversation. It unraveled the entire conversation. And it was really, really, I was so annoyed. I don't even think I watched that whole piece from Rion. That's how annoyed I was. I was like, what? And it had nothing to do with the right to ask, because clearly, to me, the reparations conversation is one that I completely agree with. It was just another example. And to me, you know, I think one of our good friends in Trinidad, Wesley Gibbons, wrote an article a few months back, if I'm not mistaken. If he's listening here, correct me, because I know he watches. And I think he asked the very same question that I was asking. Is it time to ask Jamaica, you in or you out? And if you out, just say so. Just say so. And let me go down the road. But stop this pretense that you in. Because you're really, 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 really in. You know? And it's really, really annoying.
It's frustrating. And I think there was something else that came out this week. In fact, I don't know if you see this, but I'll play this one. This is quite interesting.
Wait. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say before you move on to that one, I think I know what you can play. But I don't know if you saw an article here in the UK. Apparently, there's an MP here in the UK Parliament whose first name can't remember, last name is Drax, a Conservative MP.
Yeah.
From family-owned Drax Hall Plantation in St. George in Barbados.
Yep.
And there's a bit of a petition to get him to give it up to the Barbadian government.
In the reparations conversation for a while.
Reparations to the country. It was a heated debate here on the radio, actually, on LBC, with Najib Moaz talking about it as well. Oh, it got so heated. Obviously, many people saying, well, it has nothing to do with him. I'm like, hang on. This guy is a millionaire because, it got nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
And his family still owns it in Barbados to this day.
Yeah.
Drax Hall Plantation.
Listen, I know Drax Hall well because I grew up in Tots and my grandmother used to work on Mr. Chandler Plantation and Drax Hall just down the road. We load enough cane around there, man.
Exactly.
So it is everything to do with us and it is everything to do with him. You should do the right thing.
Exactly. So when people talk about, oh, this was so long ago. No. Because look, a man today, currently, still own, and you can see it, still own and has been with his family for hundreds of years and him profiting from it still today. So it's not something that happened 400 years ago. Very much so today, we're still seeing elements of it.
And people often forget that it is the slave owners that get the payout, you know.
Yes. And that only recently stopped.
Yes, exactly. It is the slave owners that get the payout.
Well,
right?
Payouts. I know we can move on to something else, but when you're talking about payouts, we saw what happened in Haiti. And I always tell people, Haiti today is still suffering from what they had to pay the French over many, many years. And nobody likes to talk about it, but Haiti paid reparations to France in order to be recognized as a country after the revolution. Yeah. No country, the United States, United Kingdom, no country will recognize Haiti as a country unless France allowed them to. And to be able to be recognized as an independent country, the French charged the Haitian government reparations. And what people don't recognize, they may stop paying those reparations until a few decades ago, you know. brought the country to the knees.
Still on the knees.
And
1947
still feeling for it
is when
up
it stopped.
to today. So
Just
when I hear
1947 is when they stopped paying.
When I hear Macron and these jokers talking, I'd be like, this is why it be conflicted when they see these things happening, you know, because people will focus on Donald Trump and the United States and the United Kingdom and not necessarily focus on the French and the Belgians and the Dutch and that kind of stuff and some of the stuff that they did. So people feel when they see Macron standing up to Donald Trump, they go, oh, the French, yes, the French, oh, oui, and all this kind of thing, onions, or whatever it is, and that kind of thing. But I'd be like, nah, I don't want nothing to do with the French. They're worse than the British as far as I'm concerned. Somebody mentioned the Black Jacobins, very much so there, Dennis. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That book is right there, so on my bedside table,
Black
Jacobins.
Right upstairs. Very good book.
So
heartbreaking.
Reparations is nothing new. And in this same discussion today, where someone came and said it had nothing to do with the guy's family. And Najee said, but hang on, do you know how many hundreds of people died during the slave trade from enslaving African people in these countries? And the woman let go a sigh out of this world to the point where she stopped Najee dead in his tracks. He said, if I were talking about Jewish people during the Holocaust, would you have sighed like that just now? Silence, man. Silence.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
But that is it. I think we need to think, and it's a shame to see nothing to do with reparations in itself, but it's a shame to see us being divided in the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I said, I was saddened by it, man, because this is just something we have to be completely united around. Anybody that steps out, it strips away the whole argument, man. It strips away the whole thing. But this is a trend that we are starting to see with our brothers and sisters in Jamaica. And as I said, I saw something else this week that I thought was interesting too. And this is probably worth a conversation as well, actually.
Big news for local businesses as Jamaica is now listed as one of the approved countries for seller registration on global e-commerce giant Amazon, meaning businesses locally can register to sell goods using their local information. Now, earlier I sat down with Barrington McIntosh, global Amazon consultant and top seller on Amazon, on what this means for local businesses.
This is amazing news for local companies, because prior to this, I have been selling on Amazon for 11 years. And prior to this, in order for you to sell on Amazon, you would have to partner with somebody else or either sell your products wholesale. Amazon has leveled the playing field now, saying Jamaican companies can register from here with Jamaican credentials, passport, documents, your company documents, your ID, and also local bank accounts. So this is something, Jamal, I've been waiting on for 11 years, and it's finally here, and it is big news for local companies.
What's the kind of earning potential that exists now for these local entities that would sign up?
The only way I can describe this will now parallel what tourism does for Jamaica. That is how expansive this can be in terms of the earning potential for companies. Because once you're on Amazon, you're exposed to a global audience. You're talking about millions of people worldwide. So once you can tap into that market, it's now no middle person. It's direct from manufacturer directly to the customer. So this has extreme earning potential.
That then, what do you need to sign up? I mean, you mentioned earlier the kind of documentation necessary, but what of the IT infrastructure that you possibly need? And is there a cost attached to signing up to sell on Amazon?
All right, great question. Amazon has a $39.99, and that is for their FBA fulfillment service. So what happens is Amazon will receive your products in a fulfillment center, and then from there, they will fulfill the orders, they will handle customer service, and they pay out every 2 weeks. So this is something that I know local companies have been looking forward to. But the one caution is, I would describe this as when you're going on Amazon, it's like when you're going to the embassy to get a visa. That discipline is required. You have to take care of your customers, because as easily as you go on, you could be suspended as easily. So it's something that the persons have to be very serious about this opportunity. They have to know that customer satisfaction is key and maintain good metrics.
Big news for local businesses as Jamaica is now listed. Big news for local
Missed it, one of them.
The statement in there that grabbed my attention was, this will now parallel what tourism does for Jamaica.
Oh.
So here's the thing. You rock up to a CARICOM heads of government meeting, right? You sitting down around the table, right? What going on with you, and you? You're going around the table to figure out what's happening in the various territories, right? They don't talk about these things. Because to me, an Amazon deal should be a Caribbean deal, not a Jamaican deal, right?
It would be better for Amazon too.
Come on, man. We're talking 20 million people here and across the region. That is the deal. So when I saw that, I was like, so how the Caribbean let us get away and just get this pocketed with Jamaica? How does work?
You got to answer the Caribbean no.
But this is the thing. This is the thing. So
I mean, if it was that Jamaica was becoming a gateway and there would be an Amazon fulfillment center built in Jamaica, as a sort of Caribbean hub.
Well, that's going to happen eventually, because as long as you can set up now and sell in Jamaica, naturally it means that you will soon have deliveries in Jamaica. So he's right when he say that it can parallel tourism, because
it can. Yeah.
One, Jamaica is such a huge brand, and then B, the diaspora is so big as well, and not just Jamaican diaspora. I mean the Caribbean diaspora who identify with a lot of Jamaican products too, and then within Jamaica itself, that can actually now be a gateway to Amazon deliveries and what's not, and a whole new set of e-commerce entrepreneurs and stuff are going to crop up in Jamaica. Now, would it be 10 times better if it was the whole Caribbean? Of course it would be 10 times better if it was the whole Caribbean. But look, I ain't want nobody think that we here begrudging Jamaica and the deal, right? That's not the case.
No.
But every conversation we have, we look at it from a Caribbean perspective and what might have been better for the whole region. So while we celebrate what's happening, because as we know, one of the things that has really stopped a lot of Caribbean entrepreneurs when it comes to many platforms across the world, whether it be Amazon, whether it be eBay, whether it be Yahoo, anybody still
setting
use
up
Yahoo?
A PayPal.
Setting up a PayPal account, Spotify, anything like that, to be able to monetize and use those things properly has always been very difficult. So it's great to see what's happening there with Jamaica and Amazon. But from a Caribbean perspective, you got to think, what could the potential have been? Not have been, because it's not necessarily that it's
still
past.
could be. Yeah.
What could the potential be? And it's just...
But
it's just another
still,
one of those things.
I know it still could be, but my issue is how you could have a conversation like this. And I suppose I might be prejudging what happened in the conversation, but how can you have a conversation like this and not at least widen this out for the potential across the rest of the region? Because to me, that is the big story. The big story is the Caribbean nationals now have the opportunity as entrepreneurs on Amazon to drive new economic development. That is the story.
And access.
With the story just being a Jamaican story, as much as I'm really pleased that Jamaican businesses have this opportunity, I just feel that this should be bigger. This should be much, much bigger.
It should be. And one would hope that after, getting into the Jamaican market and Jamaica getting on Amazon and seeing how that can work, one would hope that from an infrastructure perspective that Amazon also sees the benefits then for the rest of the Caribbean. For instance, Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana, especially Guyana now, given where their economy is likely to go over the next couple of years, should everything be materialized as anticipated. You would expect, too, that there's a lot to be gained by being in the Guyanese market. But you could only hope. But as I said,
Wesley might be right.
I actually wondering, did they talk about that around the table, as you say, Mark?
It does put Jamaica in a good position for them. Because now that they have that particular deal with Amazon, it means no Caribbean businesses, when they're looking to have deals and partner with brokerage or so on, they can do it with Jamaicans. So they can create a new business model around that, but it means they become a real intermediary, a hub for the Caribbean, and a hub for the Caribbean as well.
And that too might not be a bad thing.
Might not be a bad thing. It might have been the natural thing if we had gone about it as a Caribbean unit.
Exactly. Because then
negotiating with Amazon and setting it up and say, oh, and by the way, because of the proximity of Jamaica to the US and
it could have been a much bigger story, which would have included the Jamaican story, but also the Caribbean potential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If it was being thought about in that way, and if any deals or whatever it is would have been structured in that way, because if you can structure that Jamaicans can sign up using Jamaican credentials, you can also do the same thing across the rest of the Caribbean at the same time.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So it's unfortunate that it's not a bigger story than it actually could have been, but I don't know. As I said at the beginning, I feel we getting to that point where Jamaica's concerned. To be honest with you, I saw if we getting to that point, but I feel they're already telling me already. They just ain't saying it.
Big enough for their own.
And brand Jamaica is very strong and has always been.
And rightfully so. I mean, you're not going to argue with it. So I tell the people all the time, don't think that we here Jamaica bashing. That is not the aim at all. Everything that they have and they've gained and what's not is well deserved. We're just hoping that at this point the Caribbean can see, who is this? Did he answer what will they sell?
Man, there's no shortage of things to sell in Jamaica.
I don't even know the answer to that question. Did you mean what will they sell?
Let's start with Blue Mountain coffee.
Let's start with the fact that I went in Sainsbury this week and get some supplement.
You forget about Grace?
12 pack.
Grace is feeding the Caribbean, man.
Exactly.
I mean, what they can sell? There's no shortage of things to sell.
There's no shortage at all. Even looking at supplement, because this is something that we only found out recently, right? Because we looking for supplement here all through the UK and can't find it. Every now and then you get it, you can't get it. What people didn't realize is that the Jamaican company, whose name is just gone straight from me right now, has actually bought the rights to supplement from Nestle. And Nestle themselves no longer own supplement. They no longer produce it. All supplement across the world is produced in Jamaica by a Jamaican-owned company. And that's why it went off the market for a while. That was that transition that took a couple of years to sort out. So you saw all the big cans of supplement that would go off that we normally would get that you and flip open. So that's when it was Nestle. Then they'll disappear, and now you see it is the Jamaican one. There's plenty.
Okay. You alone could carry the Jamaican Amazon base with the amount of supplement that you can buy.
I remember one time, right? I went into Morrison's, and I say, "Who's the manager here?" And I'm looking for supplement. All you find is this nourishment all the time. Poor man's supplement. Poor man's supplement. I don't want a nourishment. And I tell the guy, I say, listen, I know you think that this is what West Indian people want, right? And yes, there's some that will buy this. But I tell you, you get supplement in here, it will fly off the shelf. You will never have enough supplement if you get supplement instead of this here. The guy was like, oh, I have to look into that. He never really looked into it, but African store down the road look into it. Flying off the shelves, man. When supplement came on Amazon, you can't get it. And this is the one being imported from Jamaica. No. It's on Amazon all the time. You can't find it. It just fly off the shelf. But now it's back in the supermarkets now. So they're in a shortage. And that's just one thing I'm looking at, right? They're in a shortage.
And the same with malts. The day that the supermarkets recognize that supermalt is just junk. Right? Sorry if it's your brand and you're watching. But it's just junk. Proper malt, man. Can't drink. The day that they recognize actually a grace of vitamin malt or malt, that's a malt, man. Yeah, that's a malt, no.
Indeed.
Right?
And I see Didi saying that is at the Jamaican store right there. So yeah, but not everybody that wanted got Jamaican store right there. So
nope.
Because trust me, travel outside the central city, the normal cities on the coast, A lot of this stuff you can't find if you go in the interior of the United States or in certain parts of Canada. Even right here in the UK, once you move out of a West Indian type area, man, you can't even get a haircut sometimes. Far less get some of you Caribbean.
You've had that
products.
experience?
You understand? So
that's
where e-commerce comes in. Now it's accessible to every and anybody, and that's just the diaspora I'm talking about. You know, now everybody who identifies in any way with Jamaican culture, and it's a strong brand, and the many products that come off of that, you can get up and send. And that's what is actually a huge deal. That's a massive deal.
It is
massive deal.
It is.
I really hope people take advantage of it.
Yeah. And you know, in a post-COVID world, you know, if we ever get there,
We can get
whatever deals you do, let me tell you, that will make a difference to your local people, to the region. Huge difference, man. Huge difference.
It's huge. I don't. Again, this we ain't shaming this at all. That's a massive deal to be able to do that, and it comes back to what we were saying earlier about understanding value and then understanding how to connect into the global structure. You know, because one of the things that we talk about a lot, again, we talked about earlier, is music. A similar issue is with music and being able to access, say, Spotify, Apple Music, and that kind of stuff from the Caribbean, and being able to pay with it normally and that kind of stuff. But again, imagine being able to do that. You imagine how much money our artists are missing out on because we ourselves can't even get in and partake in that. Now, yes, a lot of diaspora and stuff are being part of it, but again, if we can do it ourselves, when you live at home, we become part of that too, and we link in. So that's the benefit again for our artists, whether it be musical or fine arts and that kind of stuff, that they can benefit from as well. So that's why that structure and infrastructure is important, and that's why this is a huge deal for Jamaica and for Amazon too, because they can benefit hugely from it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know, the thing that also falls out of that, as I said, you know, post-COVID world, but I saw in the paper in Barbados today that unemployment is running at 22%, right? I was like, oh my goodness. Huge issue right now across the whole of the region. It's how we recover. So you can't fault them for what they're doing. Absolutely not. It is how we pivot now into various other markets to try and get people employed, or people start to create their own employment.
That is a pivot. But that's the kind of stuff as a Caribbean we need to be doing as a Caribbean, because that's the Caribbean now pivoting and accessing these things in such a way that allows the entire Caribbean to grow and soften the blow to what will undoubtedly be a huge impact due to tourism. Because I can tell you, I know some people gonna want to get there, some of the Brits gonna want to get there down to the Caribbean, but something tell me many people ain't going that far this winter.
Not just this winter. People, it's interesting observing what's going on across the UK as we go into, you know, the typical holiday period. What my friends been telling me is they can't find a way to stay in the country because everybody's staycationing, right?
Indeed.
And what we would have missed out on is those people who would have gone away last winter, and you know how Brits operate. As soon as they get back, the first thing they must do is
book for next year.
Next holiday.
Book the next holiday.
Book the next one, absolutely. So that hasn't happened last winter. So you got this cycle coming up where not one booking winter now. Not at this point. So you're going to miss this coming winter. And you will then start to get this ripple effect until things start to correct themselves at some point down the line. So these pivots are really, really critical. I see Dennis with a very interesting point there. Very local point to Barbados, I have to say, about advisors with no ideas.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, Dennis, but that's a good question. But again, it's about what kind of ideas. Are we trying the traditional, or are we trying to move forward with the new stuff? And the deal with Amazon and the ability now to do that from Jamaica is huge. It's massive. And if there's one thing that you say, people might say you call you a copycat. This is one that I won't mind if Mia get called a copycat. She better call them and try and do the same thing, because it is. the whole notion of the way the traditional way of accessing markets that we tend to do, all the trade fair here and there and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a place for that, but on steroids is to do it e-commerce wise and do that, man. And you could do it. And Amazon is the biggest platform there is. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
you going? Where you going? Business going. He going out there so with my man Branson, innit?
Yeah, you know, these rich men trying to outdo one another.
You know, who get to Mars first?
Yep.
So much money just say, I going Mars, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. But it's a valuable point. And I do have some fears for where the Caribbean is going post pandemic, because I've been seeing a lot of, there's a lot of frustration. I talked to my dad for an hour and a half yesterday morning, just listening to what's going on home, right? And things are tough. Things are very, very tough from the perspective of COVID, which, now look, we have decided that we're going to take the vaccine and get on with life, right? The conversation in the Caribbean is still very much about whether we should take the vaccine. And, you see some nations disposing vaccine or giving vaccines to other territories. That is a huge impact on recovery, right? So whilst we are trying to get to this point about understanding tourism and what it means, but if we don't get the vaccine, it will always mean that people are going to be very hesitant to come into those territories, or there will be all sorts of imposed rules that people don't want to live with. So whilst I feel as though in the UK things have shifted slightly in the conversation, the Caribbean is still very much at that place of, should I get the vaccine? And I think that's a real critical question that people are going to have to start answering rapidly.
Well, the science, I've been looking into a bit of this recently, and it's interesting what you're seeing coming from different places like Israel and is it Norway as well, who didn't really do any lockdowns and all that kind of. Is it Norway or Sweden?
Sweden get themselves open.
And the science is saying actually that immunity is highest where it was natural immunity as opposed to when it was vaccine immunity. No, people, I ain't telling when they don't go and get a vaccine, so don't listen, don't think that is what it's saying. I'm just looking at what science and stuff is what some of the science is saying. Let me say that. So I'm just wondering if people are just being a bit hesitant. I talk globally now, not just Caribbean, because there's a bit of hesitancy going on or slow down right across. You see certain parts of America now where they didn't even know what to do now because people just point blank refusing to take the vaccine in the millions. And I think there's a lot of that happening here in stuff. And then a lot of that is happening in the Caribbean. You see, Gonzalez had to give you, 30,000 or 25,000 vaccines he had to give you because they were coming out to spoil and nobody was taking them. Nobody was taking them in St. Vincent. So he literally had to give them away.
It is an interesting one with the Caribbean leaders when it comes to vaccine, And Gonzalez took Sputnik, I think.
This is the issue. I talked about this before tonight a few months back. Yes.
Miss Motley, well, I don't know what she took.
Nobody know what she take. She takes something.
Gaston Brown, the current chairman of CARICOM, well, I think he took Pfizer or Moderna in the very, very early days.
Before Antigua even had 2 vaccines, he had 1.
He got himself started.
So and he was like, I got.
What a concern with himself. So I think that in a strange way, the move of the leaders with the approach they took to their personal vaccination has had an effect on the decisions that people are choosing to take, because in too many instances, the people are not being offered the same vaccine as the leaders. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But it just seems as though that has contributed to why people have kind of been very reserved in leaning into the vaccine programs.
I think there's a lot. There's that and a couple other permutations there too. Is one of them is the propensity of people now to Google diagnose and Google research.
Gosh. Oh, by luck, you kill yourself, yeah.
So there's that. And then another one too is I don't think we in the region took charge of our communication and messaging early enough. It was almost a case of the vaccine coming next week. Here's where you should be taking it. and not a proper, and I mean take ownership of it. I don't mean relying on our people to watch the BBC or CNN or what have you. I don't mean that. I mean take ownership of our own communication message to our people. I think there's the leaders secretly taking wherever they're taking, and communication, and then our people on Google, and obviously our affinity to United States and the historical issues of how Black people were experimented on in the United States, and then us taking a little bit of hesitancy there as well. But having said that, I see in Trinidad, I see my guy Keith Rowley taking Sinopharm. And I see that it's causing a little, well, I don't know if it's causing an issue. When I survey the Facebook, I just seen some people causing an issue. Some people saying, no, he take water, he ain't take nothing. Because and they're saying that because Sinopharm has had a few issues even though it is World Bank certified, World Health Organization certified and what's not. And past, but people are saying, but in Europe and United States and different places, they're not necessarily recognizing it in the same way. So how he could be taking that when he know he can't get into this country or what have you, which I don't know if that is actually true. But it's just amazing to see how those stories are getting out there. I think I saw one body say, but hang on, when they first get the first batch, you had to wait 2 weeks before they deliver it. Sinopharm land on Thursday and he was getting jabbed on Friday. How that happened? You know, that kind of stuff. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that across the region where the vaccine is concerned that is worrying, is worrying. But how are we going to get out of that at this stage? Do you think that we are actually, can we get out of it at this stage?
Well, you see that point that Didi just put up there on the screen? Boy, look, if people don't stop forwarding me WhatsApp messages here, I can just start blocking people left, right, and I'm tired of it now, man. But every day somebody can send you a WhatsApp message about vaccines or some issue of something that has been discovered. Now, okay, I think people are well within their right. But for me, I think the Caribbean has a problem, and we have to recognize that we got a problem, because the longer we take to get a community that is safe, the more damage we are actually going to be doing to the economies that we are trying to save. And of course, as we see in the case recently with the Eastern Caribbean, you've got vaccines butting up now against natural disasters. So there's this real cycle of economic chaos that we are really into at the moment that just feels really scary and concerning.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd be very proactive when people sending me nonsense on WhatsApp and what's not, because I block you fast. If you're on Facebook, I unfollow you, unfriend you. When I see that the nonsense that you're sharing, I just go like, I can't deal with you, and I let you get in my news feed, because if I read it, then the way how the algorithms just work, more than nonsense can start to come in, and I ain't really about that. But we just got to try and safely get out that cycle. But I think the reason why we in a lot of that cycle is the communication, the messaging. I don't think we as a region, and again, this comes back to a regional thought process that should have really been deployed from the very beginning. As a region, we didn't take charge of that communication message. We allowed it to happen on CNN, on BBC, with Dr. Fauci and the fights he was having with Donald Trump and all that kind of stuff. We allowed that to be I think that's a different fight that was going on in those countries.
That's not our fight.
Completely different fight. That's not our fight, and it's not our circumstance.
When you say we, who you talking? Who you mean?
I mean we as a people. As a people. When I say we, I mean we as a people. Our leaders did not take charge of the message. We didn't take hold of it. And in this world today, the way how the internet works, the connectivity, and to assume that the argument they're having here actually applies to me, those can get blurred very quickly.
Indeed.
Because if that's where you consume news from, all of a sudden you in a fight that actually ain't got nothing to do with you.
Nope. Not our fight.
And not understanding what your fight is.
Was actually relevant to us.
Exactly. Yeah. And how, see that fight them having there? In my context, that means nothing. And it was up to our leaders to take hold of that message. And I don't think we did. As I say, you had cases where, in Barbados and time, you had cases where as the vaccines are coming off the plane, the advertising and the media campaign was now being launched at the same time. The vaccine's going to start roll out in 2 weeks' time. Huh? But you already consume everything I want off of QAnon and all these kind of places. I got you can't tell me nothing.
For me, that just tells me that there's been a whole set of uncertainty regarding, and you could probably say in large economies, they also had that uncertainty around the acquisition of the vaccine as well. But I think the uncertainty in our economies is greater.
Yeah,
but that's exactly something that we have to be truthful about and grapple with. But I heard this talk from, can't remember her name. She's from Harvard Business School about how do you get people to trust. What's trustworthy communication? There are 3 elements to it, and the first is logic. Be reasonable. Yeah, you have to sort of say this is why this is the case, and the second is being authentic and being honest about why this is the case. And then the third is being empathetic. If you can speak in a way that you're empathetic with what people are going through, what people are expecting, what people are concerned about, what people are fearing, then you can create a narrative that's relevant to the people you're speaking to.
I think Caribbean leaders were so caught up with the firefighting of dealing with the COVID and its spread that there wasn't a lot of consideration given to, even that approach you just mentioned there, Phil, about how do we manage the messaging, make sure it's authentic and make sure that it's credible and people will believe what we're saying. Because had they done that collectively, they could have actually had a very strong position. But because they've all gone off, taken different vaccines, taken different approaches, people don't know what they're doing, but then got different vaccines for the population. And we don't like getting vaccinated to start with as a people, although we get a lot of vaccines when we are young and before we go to school and that kind of stuff. We do.
We can't go to school till we get jumped 10 times.
We do. But we have, when it comes to medication and vaccines and the like, we can be very, very hesitant as a people. That's just who we are naturally, right? Yeah. But in truth, we just missed the boat with this completely. And I just feel as though it is starting to turn itself now, not into just a vaccine issue, but a huge economic turmoil issue where you've got the natural disasters, the vaccine legacy, the tourism not happening, all these things coming together.
Yeah. Well, it was almost a perfect storm of information.
Mismanagement.
Mismanagement. Should I do them a disservice? I know if that is a disservice or not. I guess people would tell me when I say that if I am. But to me, it was a perfect storm of information mismanagement because I think there was all that to do with the vaccine. Then there was also the communication of the huge focus on extra-regional tourism and getting that up and running and starting and going. And in many cases, what seems to be one set of rules for them and one set of rules for the public in the region as far as what they had to adhere to and that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that stuff just collided to create a lot of noise. And whenever you have a lot of noise that's being created at a time when people are supposed to actually be following a certain path, then people aren't going to follow that path. People are just not going to do it. And to be fair to Gonzalez as well, you had the issue obviously with Soufriere and that kind of stuff that came up. You had certain different things that came up, although that was down the track. So you can't really use that as an excuse.
No, you can't.
That stuff is down the track.
But they're all coming together. Adrian's point there is a fantastic point.
Very good point.
He made this point when he was on our show a few weeks ago.
He did, yes.
That this whole area of childhood vaccinations and adult vaccinations, you got to separate out. Because, as adults, people don't like getting jerked.
True.
And it takes a certain amount of probing and prompting and messaging for people to get confident to then take that step. And Carol is right. We take everything from America, but that's not our fight.
Nor our circumstance or our reality.
Yeah.
It just isn't. And you got to pick and choose from the menu of what's out there in the world as to what you can transfer home, what you can adapt and apply to your own situation, and then what you're going to leave and create your own thing. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to be more conscious of going forward. And I hope we are. I'm hopeful that we are. We got a new CARICOM secretariat coming in, and first lady to be taking up that role, and I hope she do something that the men have not been able to do all these years, and figure out a way to help us to be more united, and to be able to move down the road and to plan better, to be a bit more innovative too on certain things, and to really have a strategic plan as to how we as a region could be sustainable. And by sustainability, I just don't mean start longshore drift on the beaches. I mean proper sustainable in many areas that's happening out there in the world, and connect ourselves into, the structures that are out there. I hope that's one of the things. But one of the things that I pick up on over the last few weeks as well is Trinidad. I know we love Trinidad, and Mark, I know you love Trinidad, and I love Trinidad and Trinidad people. We know we got quite lots of Trinidadian people probably watching now. But one of the things that was concerning me, that I was thinking about, is I feel as if Trinidad in a very precarious position. And I don't know if it is because I only now paying attention, and it's always so therefore it's nothing to worry about. That is just Trinidad, like a lot of bassa in their politics and that kind of stuff. But nothing clearer than that came home to me than recently when, we had the assassination of the Haitian president. And I couldn't believe some of the messages that I was saying on Trinidad, on what we call Trini Facebook and Trini Twitter and Trini IG, where people were actually saying, there's a warning to we one.
Wow.
Or somebody should come here and do this to we one that we got out here. And man, I could not believe it. What I was seeing going on there, to the point that one of the news outlets, I can't remember which one it is, so I'm gonna call one to make sure that I don't get anybody in trouble, wrongfully so. But there was a story when they were actually reporting on what happened in Haiti, and the guy who was reporting was a guy called, I think it was Akash, or whatever his name is, I think. But the way how he segued from that to local news was that many use this, i.e. what happened in Haiti, to send a warning to Prime Minister Rowley in Trinidad. That was the extent. That's how he used it.
Wow.
And then he showed a few messages on what people were saying, which was basically, in my opinion, calling for the assassination of Keith Rowley in Trinidad. And I was like, what? Seriously? Now, again, maybe I know paying attention, but this was always how it was. But maybe I didn't seen it before, but it tells me, and even from watching some of the other stuff and reading and that kind of thing, Trinidad in a very precarious position to me from the outside looking in. From the outside, and I gotta be able to say that, from the outside looking in. The guys on the ground, Bernadette and Elmi and the others and all that kind of stuff, y'all could tell me what y'all think in the chat, but from the outside looking in, it feels as if it's in a very precarious position. And it don't matter to me who started. I know some will say, but no, you gotta be specific and say who started is one side versus the other side. Yes, I agree with that. But at the same time, there's enough people listening to the other side that started, and all you need is a few idiots. Just as you only needed a few idiots to listen to Priti Patel saying something that I'm sure she didn't mean it in the way how she meant, but enough idiots listened to it to then cause the Twitter storm that we saw after the England thing. Enough idiots listening to that nonsense that could cause an issue in Trinidad from the outside looking in. I don't know if y'all see any of that.
I agree. I think from the time we started Be Global, and I've got quite a few friends in Trinidad, and it's always an interesting place, but it seems very divisive, and not just divisive, but poisonously divisive. It's something that you look across Caribbean politics, you always see all this rah-rah going on between the various tribes. But something is happening in Trinidad that feels as though it's simmering for now. But you've got to be so careful when you live in a free state and a free republic, and you want to protect that. that you don't allow yourself to become so tribal that overall you collectively damage what you're trying to protect, and it just feels very tribal and poisonous at the moment. And as you said, I think because we've been paying attention to what's happening across the region, this jumps out a lot. But Trinidad has to respect its history. I'm sure they do. But you've got to remember, this is a nation that not too long ago, they were 1990. Not that far back.
1990s, yeah.
Not that far back.
Yeah. I think globally, this is the last 4 years, and far be it from me, I'm not one of those to try to blame everything on Donald Trump. But there's a parallel to be seen in what happened with Donald Trump and his ascension into power. For a long time, people in the United States were saying, oh, don't mind them. That is just them talking a lot of nonsense. But we as an American people are forward-thinking people. Racism is not there and this and that. We're not that tribal. That's just a few, what's the phrase they like to use when they say it's a small number? It's a minority.
Small minority.
It's a little small minority of people. But I think when you look at someone using the rhetoric of the small minority, more than half the country elected them into power, though.
75 million.
Now, you could talk about the electoral college system all you want and all that kind of stuff. Great, fine. Yes, I get that. But the fact of the matter is, look at the number of people that supported. Not just the beginning when you didn't know what it was about, but after 4 years, look at how many people voted. Again, you got the way how the media is broken up in the United States. You're either here or you're there. You're on the left or on the right. You're either for me or against me. Which, by the coincidentally, I don't know if you're raised, but something happening here in the UK too with this GB News nonsense, that just start. They're slowly heading down that same way of a Fox News versus MSNBC versus ONE versus whatever. That is the building blocks. That is the start. Always under the guise of free speech and all that kind of rigmarole. And I just feeling as if Trinidad, from my observation, is heading down that slow walking.
It's simmering.
Down that thing, That's just, again, I pray it never come to anything crazy, but for me, it just feels as if it's slow walking to that point. And the Donald Trump era has given a lot of legitimacy to staking, to tribalism,
that form of
so
behavior,
to speak. And everyone trying to win the argument as opposed to just listening for the common good moving forward. That's not to say you now have opposition and that kind of stuff, but do you think alongside with the political behaviors, do you think technology has also played a role, of course,
in that as well? Because to some extent, technology, well, let's use social media or even traditional media itself, becomes a bit of a microscope on society. There might be a certain behavior that's happening in a minority, and that might be true, but when you place a social media or a media lens over it, it suddenly becomes magnified. And then that magnified image of it then gets superimposed back onto society in this sort of arc. If you see what I mean. So you start off with something, it might be a few. They gain some sort of prominence and visibility through media. And then that starts to influence a wider population of people.
Yeah.
Even if the social media attempt itself was to highlight how wrong this is, it still gets a lot of media play, and a lot of people still get to sit back and look at it and consider it and think, I actually subscribe to that. Right? I think this is a real danger with media. There's some research that says negative sentiment spreads and propagates quicker than positive sentiment.
Yes.
Right. So if you have news that's good news or things that are sort of virtuous and lovely and that sort of that stuff don't go nowhere in social media. But as soon as you have things that are very toxic and negative and intimidating and threatening, they spread.
People want to read that.
People want to read it. And even if it's stuff that people do not agree with, it gets out there.
Agreed. And the problem is, and this is where I have a little bit of sympathy with the media, is you're in a catch-22 situation at times.
Mm-hmm.
Do you leave it and just let people run with whatever ideas they want? Or do you bring it onto the mainstream and try to debunk it? You see, the problem is, though, when you bring it onto the mainstream and try to debunk it, you kind of legitimize it as a legitimate argument.
As worthwhile debunking.
As right. So now you're saying, no, this is a worthwhile position for us to have a conversation about.
Indeed.
And then once you do that, that's when you start the entrenchment now. Because now those people are watching like, yes, this is right. But no, you trying to tell me that what my beliefs are wrong.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden you get into this whole... but it happens on... I don't want to say on both sides because I hate the whole left and right argument. But it happens in many, many conversations. You know?
No, an interesting set of people are the Flat Earth Society. You would have heard about them.
I hear about them, yeah.
So I was chatting with someone and they were saying, I don't get how there could be people who actually believe in the whole Flat Earth stuff and argue about it. I said that's because you're not getting what their purpose is. And their purpose is not, a lot of people who are in the Flat Earth Society, their purpose is, they don't really believe the earth is flat, but they want to prove to you that they could prove anything. If you see what I mean.
Mm.
So the Flat Earth Society is a bunch of people who want to prove that the way we go about science and the way we go about reasoning is flawed and broken. And we can get a whole set of people together and we can put out a bunch of statements and present facts and use statistics and use imagery and disinformation as well to prove that the earth is actually flat and we're being sold a lie. And that...
The problem is, though, while that might be the goal from the outset from the few people who know what is they're trying to do,
there are people who subscribe
you got
already.
Millions of people who subscribe and going, I agree with this.
Exactly.
And then the moment they see themselves on NBC and CNN, they go, we in the conversation.
Yep.
Yes.
So that's all we want. That's all we don't want.
That's the whole issue.
And then all of a sudden, it's a conversation to be had, and everybody think, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
someone said Coco Goff tested for coronavirus. That was going to happen with the traveling around too.
Yeah.
I wonder if what you brought there was interesting. The whole idea of debunking. You know, we were talking about culture probably 2 programs ago, and Omari was on, and he said some stuff that really got me supercharged. So I said, one of the
take a lot to get Jay supercharged, yeah.
You know.
But get charged, but
he was saying is, you know, if man, I was like, yes, I like this. One thing he was saying is, if something is our culture, we have to use it, make it useful, right? Because sometimes we just look at culture and say, oh, this is enjoyable or beautiful. We look at the aesthetics of it, but the utility and functionality of it, we sometimes ignore, right? And I think there's really, really something in that. So even when it comes to debunking news and maybe taking your time to unfold things and think about things, maybe there's a play there for us in the Caribbean, because our pace of life is inherently a little bit slower and not as rushed. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to create news where we dwell on things a little bit. Take some time out, unpack it, have arguments about it without feeling rushed.
I somehow think that we've been overcome by what has become the societal norms in terms of media and news, sadly. But I think what you raised there about Trinidad is resonating with people in the chat. So clearly, there's something going on there.
I think so too. And it's
simmering away there.
I watching it and I simmering. I just watching it. And, you know, this body blaming that body blaming that body, the language, there's news. I think I saw Kamala, what was it last? I'm missing his name. He's missing.
Prasad,
I always call it wrong. Bisessa, how you pronounce it. She put out a communique a few weeks ago and she called Roddy a vagrant. I was like, whoa. But the funny thing is then the reply come and said, the next time I have to talk about you, I will not hold back. I was like, what going on in Trinidad? And for me, it's not the fight going on at the top. Is the comments, is the threads that you read,
people,
and that's the sentiment of where people at, and you go like, whoa. It is bubbling and bubbling and bubbling there, and yeah, when I saw the stuff with Haiti and people actually almost inviting the same thing to happen to their prime minister, whether you agree with him or not, he's a human being, and you kind of inviting the same thing to happen. I was like, really?
Vaccine vagrant.
That was it, Liz. Yes.
bit of alliteration as well.
Yeah. that's what she called him. I was like, what the heck is going on? And then the comments, it was the comments under that was an official statement, that wasn't even just a off the cuff remark. That was a proper official statement. And then it was just the comments, obviously, of her tribe under that, and that went even a step further. But no one within the tribe correcting one another. Mm-mm. And that's where you get the ignorance, where no one within the tribe is saying, hey, you can't do this.
Out of order.
And the leader not coming out and saying to her tribe, no. We can't have that kind of language. We can't have that kind of talk. When that is not happening, that's when you know, okay, you heading down a certain line here.
Absolutely. Nobody can feel empowered enough to say, actually, hold on, guys.
And as Michelle said, you're giving people now the leeway to express yourself how you want to.
Yep.
I will allow you to do that. Go ahead. Anybody that try to tell you different, they're trying to impede your freedom of speech and your freedom of thought. There's nothing official ever coming condemning that kind of behavior and stuff. And that's where the connection to me with Trump came, because in politics, even just for politics, you will come out and say something with a wink and a nod and say, no, we do not accept that kind of language, right? We don't accept that. But you put it in black and white as an official statement, so now everybody can see that I condemn it. The thing of the Trump era is that you don't even have to do that. And you will not lose any political support.
Yep.
You will not lose any political capital. It is fine.
My people will go with me.
My people, exactly.
Yep.
And I'm allowing my people to express themselves because they have legitimate grievances. And that's the difference to me. That's what Trump has brought. The thing that people fear politicians will never go to in order to win, that's where they've gone. He's allowed it to happen. And people around the world are using it now. See, the guy in Brazil was using the same thing. Like the people dead of COVID, my people can still vote for me. You got people that are not the most savory of people around the world. The same argument the Chinese might use. You got the same argument that some tyrants across different parts of different continents around the world might use, because why? Well, he do it and he ain't lose nothing.
It'd be interesting to see if they're sort of the same fraternity of political advisors just cruising around the world, whispering in different politicians' ears, being paid.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That is the playbook.
That's the playbook, and they tell you you're not going to lose anything.
Yeah, I want to go back on that point that Dennis raised there about Cocoa Golf, though, because the Olympics seem to be tottering a little bit. I say two athletes had previously tested positive, and I watching this, because I got a feeling that this could be a little bit spectacular if we're not careful with how this whole thing playing out now, with athletes going around the world to participate in a games that even the people in Tokyo don't seem to want at this point in time.
Well, this is really interesting, right? Because I suppose if they miss this year, next year is a World Cup year.
And the Commonwealth Games.
And exactly.
And World Championships.
Right. So it means you don't have any.
That's it. And
for whatever reason, Japan is just not letting this go.
No. Too much money spent.
Right?
Yeah.
To be if there's one country I think that could pull it off from a technology perspective and that kind of stuff, I think Japan might be able to. And from a cultural perspective of how you might expect people to behave and follow rules and that kind of stuff, I think they might be able to. But like you, I don't know. I ain't wait and see mode. From a selfish perspective, it give me something to watch during summer after football. And it's good because, football coming next year again. So you just got 3 full years of just stuff happening. So you feel like, this is cool. But you're thinking, I don't know, I don't know if they should even bother with this. Something that happened here, that's my thing. But I mean, I hope everybody be safe. We got a good Caribbean contingent that will be going across as well. I seen Jamaica gonna have a pretty strong team. Although I think they had some issues there with a 400-meter hurdler, I think, who had a bit of a hamstring and he didn't make the games, and he was saying he should get treatment to allow him to go to the games. But I think he's a defending champion actually. But these things happen. So wish everybody well and hope they stay safe. But
and it's interesting to see how COVID is going down through the ages, and as you guys know, we now have an 18-year-old, and he went for his vaccine today, funny enough. And it's interesting because I was kind of thinking, what do we do? What do we do at this point now? Because ultimately it's his choice.
So wait. Step back. So you at the age now you bet before you said no.
Long time.
That mean again, old boy. So you can't even say, "Hey, time for bet."
Nah.
You. Yeah.
But listen,
that's me again up there.
Man, this coming at you. Don't worry, this coming to you.
I know. But for the time being, I enjoying you, so don't worry.
and in truth, that has really hit you. That has really hit you when you realize, actually, turn off the lights when you're ready.
No, what can really hit you is that the man there saying down any head going. Well, this man not
go to bed.
So you can watch what you want to watch, though. You man don't go to bed. That's what can really hit you when that's what he taking.
Well,
man go to bed, what?
Man, look, it don't even be that these days, because these kids with their mobile phones now, and that's one of the things. We had real tight rules and stuff around him as he was growing up, but they get to an age where you just gotta let them create their own rules,
their responsibility,
find their own boundaries.
Guidelines,
Exactly. So he went for his vaccine today, and I felt it was the right choice, and I was glad that he decided to do so, because a lot of young people at the moment, it just seemed to be going down through the ages. I think we had over 500,000 kids at one point over the last 2 weeks off from school in this country.
Yes,
and it is just running rampant now in kids.
Well, our 12-year-old tested positive a few weeks ago. So we all had to isolate for 2 weeks in the house. Not even the supermarket, nothing at all. We had to. She didn't feel anything and she's fine. She went back to school for the last week and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's how when it come home.
Mm-hmm.
So now I know I'm fully vaccinated. Carol will get her second vaccination tomorrow and stuff. But there we were. Our 12-year-old tested positive. We did 3 tests. All 3 were positive. The full lateral flow test was positive as well and stuff. And it was home here at us. So.
But you got to take the steps. And it's funny, it's funny because as I told you guys, I got pinged this week from the NHS app saying I need to self-isolate for 5 days. I was like, what?
Did you self-isolate?
I haven't gone anywhere. Okay, I've been here,
Sure. Just making sure.
But of course,
report you.
Of course, we all got up to the news this morning. that good old Mr. Johnson himself was pinged on the app.
Yes. Because the health secretary here, Minister of Health, tested positive for COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But he come in with all guns blazing after the other man. He was no nonsense man.
I'm gonna sort it out.
Gonna sort it out. Oops. Hold on when I get back.
Yeah.
But what was so interesting? What was all interesting is that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor this morning almost trying to weasel their way out a little bit of not self-isolating.
Of not self-isolating.
You
mean to come up with this program that nobody's heard of? We're
taking part in a trial that's happening in Downing Street, and we will do daily tests, so we won't be isolating. And an hour later, that don't look very good.
The thing is that was funny about that was that he mentioned all these different departments that were taking part in the trial, and he mentioned TFL, and TFL was like,
"Huh? Are we?
Huh? What are you talking about?"
You know what you talking about?
And you know the unions here don't have miss a chance to sticking them in teeth. He was like, what trial he talking about? We
I got briefed on this.
Wait, man, we talking about? What trial?
In fact, I'm sure I read in the news yesterday that there were so many drivers and staff off from TFL that I couldn't even run trains.
Exactly. So they weren't part of any trial, you know?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one to see how it continues to roll forward over the course of the next couple of weeks with this particular app and with young people. So it's good now that we come into the end of the school year, because it feels as though it's been a heavy burden for students and teachers, man.
I think heavy. So. One for you here, Phil.
What do you think of critical? Whoa.
Yeah.
That just came out of the side.
That come out the side. Well, the room is a chat, so we chatting. People here. You know the background to critical race theory and stuff in the US, right?
I do. Yes, I think there's a space for it, but I think sometimes the narrative gets mixed in to one-sided conversation.
I think this is exactly the same thing that I was just talking about how people get in their tribes and their camps, and they refuse to see. They refuse to be any give in thought or any give in common sense, because I have a position to hold and I'm not letting go. So I'm going to frame a narrative based on my position, and that is my framing.
And that's it. Yeah.
And I also have a bunch of media outlets and social media and stuff that's in my camp to back it.
And we're good.
And we're good, along with my millions and millions of people out there. So I think you're right. There's absolutely nothing wrong with critical race theory in and of itself.
It's a view.
Well, it's not even a view. It's just teaching a bit of history of the way how the United States was founded and some of the building blocks that it was founded on, and speaking about how that disadvantaged a lot of certain people within society, and how that could be carried forward even today. So it's just opening your eyes to the way how the building blocks that created this country, how things were formed, how you can turn it into is teaching us to hate each other.
Exactly. But when I say it is a view, right? It's a view of disadvantage, right? Because there are other reasons for different types of people being disadvantaged in societies, but this is a particular view from a racial heritage perspective. And I think what gets lost is that, you know, when you talk about privilege and so on, people say, "But I am not privileged." He said, "But." This is a specific type of conversation we're having. It's not having this broad, all-encompassing conversation. And if you're able to step through the different views and perspectives and narratives, and land at the common ground and the common agitator, then it's progressive.
Yeah, there just seems to be a whole... I'm not willing to listen to you unless you have the exact same thought process of me, or unless you're on my side.
Yeah.
So forget your thought process. Unless you're on my side, I can't listen to you.
We have to be saying the same thing.
Even though sometimes they might be saying the same thing, but I can't listen to you because you're not on my side.
Yeah.
And it's like, but if that is the case, well, how we could ever move forward?
Yep.
We can move forward if you let me win.
Yeah.
And move forward with my position, and then that's progress, and that's how we can move forward. And that's one of the things that's a big issue.
Be interesting to know what Dennis's thoughts are. If you can just
I was wondering why did he, because it seemed to be just almost a bit of a random thing there.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to know why he brought it up there.
Yeah, you know, all kind of comments is coming in me in the living room. No problem with that there at all. You know, but that's again, I think that just comes back to what we talk. People just entrenching themselves in these different areas and these
tribes,
different camps and tribes, and nobody willing to listen to anybody, and nobody willing to. It's actually quite frustrating and exhausting, to be honest with you. It really could be. But then again, since the post-Trump era, you could actually see where things are potentially heading in many different pockets of society and in some countries as well.
Yeah, it's a good point, Carla.
Quite interesting. Was that what Carla said?
We started with race. It's a good point.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
it's a good point.
yeah.
Good point.
Good point.
Good point. Good
So I want to say I want to shout out a couple of people actually.
Shout away, man.
Let's go with this fella here as we were talking earlier about success. Although I think he was saying recently the ICC don't like him being referred to as that. Universe boss. 14,000 T20 runs.
He said what? Don't refer to him as that.
I think the ICC don't like him being referred to as universe boss. I think I read that somewhere last week. I have no idea.
I tell you, ICC don't bite the head, man.
Somebody at the ICC is probably looking now to understand what bag your head means, but don't worry.
Tell you, ICC don't bite the head, man.
But Chris Gill, man, what a cricketer, huh? What a guy.
The man is the man. You gotta give him that.
Absolutely.
You can actually forget that he getting up there in age now, you know.
Yes.
You could almost forget that with Chris Gill. He's just ever present, you know. And it's good to see how he's just morphed into his own his own persona and his own ability, you know, using his abilities and stuff as well, man. You know.
He has found his niche for sure, you know. He's come a long way from the guy who used to open the batting with Weaver Hines a long time ago when he made his debut.
Exactly. But, and find a space for his brand of cricket, his kind of no runs cricket. I don't
wait. What's that Valerie talking about there? Talk about
the catch. Oh, we got you covered, man. Valerie.
Yeah, let me see if we can find that there, man.
We got you covered. This is a catch. Yeah.
That is magnificent. And guess who? Yeah, keep quiet. We don't need to say it. Guess who?
Finch had to find runs. He had to find runs. He knows that he's limping, so therefore he has to go at it.
Wow.
You fantastic. Know, I rewind that about 5 times, you know.
Yeah?
Because I actually couldn't believe that. I was like, nah, he ain't catch that, man. He run that across the... I could understand that it's stick, right? But you know, if you turn the ball down and you rub it on the ground, you call that drop as well. You gotta keep your hand under. So I was like, there's no way that's stick and he dive cross in that motion and that ball and rub around the ground. There's no way that he had the presence of mind to keep that control. But when I saw it and I was like, oh wow, that is probably
it was fantastic.
That's potentially the best catch in international cricket that I have ever seen.
Ever
seen. And you see a lot. You see quite a few, but that particular one, man, that is a catch and a half, man.
It is.
That is a catch and a half.
And I think we should also shout out, another Jamaican, Stephanie Taylor, man, world number 1, all rounder, top of the rankings at the moment as a batter, as they call them these days, and number 1. All around in ODI is fantastic. And I think it's great to be able to see this in West Indies cricket, you know, across the board. We are making our presence felt, winning.
I think so. There's something there to build on, and there's nothing like the winning feeling.
Nothing like it.
There's nothing like new players coming in. You never tell me if you win anything, though.
I know the feeling of winning. Well, we had to win something to get to Division 1.
Oh. Well, you might have come third out to the 3 being promoted from Division 2. I don't know.
That's still winning.
Phil, defend yourself, man.
I don't need to defend myself.
No, it's good to see fellas coming into a winning team, a winning West Indies team. In T20, and then also I think we competing in the other forms as well, and competing more than we would have seen a little bit, you know, in the past, where people would have kind of moved away from cricket and stuff. So that's good to see. That's good to see, and long may it continue. Long may it continue. The men and the women in maroon continue to go out there and, you know, beat ball and stuff, you know.
Looking forward to the T20 World Cup there this year, man. Hopefully the West Indies can Bring it home.
Sure.
Bring it home.
I'm hoping so. We T20 is it? Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Somebody in the chat will tell us.
I see the UK now come up with it. The England now come up with this thing now called the
The
100.
100, man.
What nonsense it is, though.
You're not supporting your team from down south?
Listen, you know what that is, right? That is that the Indians come and carry along T20 and then vex and then decide to make up their own thing. No. That is all that is. That is all. You got T20, the 100. Whoa.
Well, boy, let's wait and see how it goes.
Although in the 100, is mixed teams in the 100, is it?
Oh, you mean mix?
There aren't men and women playing on the same team?
No, I think they're two separate teams.
Oh, there's a women's team.
There's a women's team and a men's team.
Okay.
So you got a team in each region.
Oh, okay. Each region has a men and a women's team.
Mm-hmm.
But men can play against women?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Oh, I wasn't sure how it's. I haven't paid it any money.
I think the evening is structured. You go to the game, there's a women's game, and then there's a men's game.
Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I must admit, I haven't even bothered to look and read the rules of it because I was like, this is
foolishness.
T20 come, we had a big fuss, the rest of the world take it and make it bigger, when they're successful in it, and now when I come and make up one thing.
Sound like it. But we'll see.
If we get Michael Holding back on, we gotta ask him. We think what 100.
I think we know what you can say already.
we could definitely ask him. Oh, Mikey, what do you think about 100? You know you can let go of big stroops. That should be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
But anyway, anything else y'all want to catch up, talk about?
Man, I just looking forward to the week ahead. Now look as though the sun is going to be with us for a little while.
The sun is with us. People in St. Lucia, you'll have an election coming up in a week or so.
Oh,
Stay safe, please. Stay safe. Interesting. I think that might be a bit closer than we think, although maybe I don't know. From what I reading, it might be. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But people in St. Lucia, stay safe. Although I don't know if that already gone through the edits already, because from what I could see of these meetings and people driving up and down and the I say parties, but name parties is just rallies and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I think people ain't thinking nothing about COVID or anything. So
no, man.
I just hope people stay safe where that is concerned. I think that is on the 26th or 25th, 26th, if I'm not mistaken, in St. Lucia. So guys, be safe there. We didn't really. Is it? Yeah, that's it, man. So look, that was good catching up about everything that's going on across the region. Guys, thanks for joining us and
beyond.
As usual, and beyond, because look, we in the world, right? So things that happening around the world.
Universe.
We're not supposed to use that according to ICC.
That is where we are.
But it's good to catch up and just to have a pause and see what's going on, talk about a few topics, bring in the audience and that kind of stuff. So that's always good fun to do as well, because there's a lot happening. And sometimes you just don't have the time to pause and just say, oh, based on this happening, what's the thoughts? What's going on there and that kind of stuff. So it's always good to do that, man. I was a little late today, but tech issues, the computer just decided to update itself. Katie, thank you very much. Have a safe week yourself. Valerie, have a safe week. Nicole as well. Have a good week. But look, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe this week here in the UK. We are sweltering. Look, I drink this whole thing of water since we did here saying so I am bursting at the moment. But look, it's been good fun. Thank you guys for being with us. Have a fantastic week. As usual, stay on the page. Let us know how you guys are doing. We'll put a whole bunch of stuff up as usual. Interact with that and just stay a part of the community. Hit share. Especially on the page, do us a favor, invite 10 of your friends to join the page and become part of the community, and let's keep growing that out as well. Bring them in now. Let's have the conversation. Let's open it up to a wider tent, a bigger tent. These Caribbean people, we could talk for the world. We love a talk. We love a conversation. So bring in as many people as you can. So until next time, guys, have a good one.
Take care.
Oh, that's the rules there. I